The topic that I've chosen to cover is communication, and specifically communication among club sports officers. In this case, I am covering the instances of communication within the UCI Women's Lacrosse Club and my experiences serving as alumni chair, vice president, and president. Each UCI club sport is required to have at least 3 officers that can facilitate communications between the club sports office and the club in particular. The club sports office requires these positions in order to maintain organization and to ensure that clubs are meeting deadlines and filing proper paperwork. The clubs file paperwork with both the club sports offices and their individual leagues, and it is important for them to maintain communication not only between them and the club sports office and their leagues, but communication among board members in general. My experience showed that there was a lot of miscommunication that occurred between previous and current board members, as well as board members that were serving within the same year. And this was a result of improper expectations that were set for each particular board member and just disorganization. Now, our textbook covers the communication model, which consists of the sender, channels, and receivers. In a normal method of communication, the sender is the one who is relaying information to the receiver, and the receiver is the one who is indicating that they have understood the message that is attempting to be conveyed. The channel is the form in which the information is conveyed. For example, the channel could be email, in-person, text, or a memo. Now, there's also nonverbal communication, which is very important because nonverbal communication can further emphasize verbal communication or can be used in place of verbal communication. There are 3 forms of communication that the textbook also discussed: upward communication, downward communication, and lateral communication. Upward communication occurs when employees are talking to their superiors. Downward communication occurs when superiors are talking to their employees, and lateral communication occurs when people of the same level are talking to each other. For example, supervisors to supervisors, or employees to employees. All forms of communication are important because upward and downward occur sort of like the sender and receiver, and lateral occurs among each other. An example of lateral communication is if an employee needs to ask another employee whether they can cover their shift for any particular reason. For my paper, I used research conducted in which 400 survey takers were analyzed, and these were employees of medium and large-sized U.S. corporations. And they were instructed to participate in web surveys in order to explore the correlation between face-to-face channels of communication and employee satisfaction. To gather data, a sampling firm used multinational sampling to recruit individual employees, and random sampling was the method used to select a representative sample. The final sample comprised of 45.6% males, 55.4% females, 59.2% non-management, and 40.8% management employees. Survey made use of a scale ranging from 1, representing strongly disagree, to 7, representing strongly agree, to gather information on measures such as leadership, communication, and satisfaction. Now, this research indicated that the most effective forms of communication were face-to-face contact or telephones. These forms of communication are better because they facilitate two-way communication and allow both sides of the conversation to partake. The channel of information is very important because if one were to utilize an ineffective method, it is possible that the method that is trying to be conveyed is interpreted as something else, resulting in miscommunication. In regard to improper channels of communication, I realized that our officers of the UCI Women's Lacrosse Club used various channels for different things. We would utilize GroupMe, post lengthy messages on Facebook, hold time-sensitive conversation through the text messages, and hardly formally meet to discuss deadlines. I found that this was ineffective because the officers didn't know what was expected of them. So instead, I decided to utilize more effective forms of communication. Proper communication is a major component of effective and successful leadership. Based on the research mentioned, the way to ensure employee satisfaction in terms of communication is to utilize channels in which face-to-face exchange of information is present. Because of this reason, I began to hold bi-monthly meetings with my teammates in order to make sure that everyone was meeting deadlines and to maintain satisfaction among group members, because then they would take pride in their jobs and make my job easier. This pertained to lacrosse because without the stress of board members struggling to meet deadlines, they were better teammates on the field. And this was important because though it seems like we communicate a lot on the field, some of those miscommunication aspects can be carried on and off. For example, if one person doesn't pick up on certain nonverbal cues, they probably won't pick up on them on the field either. So by working on this through face-to-face meetings, we were able to increase the quality of our relationship. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that this helped you in regards to increasing the quality of your communication. Thank you.